Hello everyone, Jim and Jenell Maranto coming to you from our studio in Phoenix, Arizona. We're going to present the second part of basic elements of ballroom dancing with a focus today on the tango. Well, tango is a very complex dance and quite specific to itself, you know?
I think even though we're presenting the bronze level right here, I sort of feel that all of the techniques you learn are quite advanced. And it encompasses things that you've heard of so many times, rise and fall. There is no rise and fall in tango. There's no swing and sway. And sometimes you wonder, well, can't do any of that, so what am I supposed to do? So those are the things we're going to talk about today.
I think of that all the time. What am I supposed to do? But I'll tell you, the way you know what you're supposed to do is by listening to the music. So that's where we're going to start today. We're going to play a little foxtrot rhythm. And we're going to do something that I always like to do is make people stand in place, get inspired by the music itself, because that's the reason we do the steps that we do in the way that we do them, because we're trying to make our body look and feel like that sound. And then we will put on the tango and see why it's so radically different.
Very different.
So come on over to the old Victrola, well, record player, where we like to use the vinyl disc. We also will be using the cover of the album for some of our drills later. So they're very useful, not just for this nice music. But we'll first start with a foxtrot. Now, the foxtrot, a very undulating dance. Makes you want to sway, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Sing along if you know the words. There's no words here. Now, this makes us want to move. It makes our body want to undulate and tell our feet where to go. You can almost envision Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. Hands moving, body swaying, and knees softening, light and agile. There's your foxtrot. Now, the real test. We will move the needle to the tango. Sure hope it's a tango.
I hope so too. Oh, that's a tango.
Suddenly, does this feel good anymore?
No.
No. Makes you want to march, doesn't it? Now we'll go back to swing and sway and see how that feels. Not so good. So the music is telling us what our bodies should do. Attack, attack. So that's why we do what we do. And I'll just show you in a second. So, we will start by showing you the dance position of, well, posture and dance position of the swinging dances, your foxtrot, your waltz, your quick step and your Viennese waltz. And then we will contrast it with how we dance it in the tango. So there was a question proposed earlier by our previous video online, and a question I get all the time, because ballroom dancing is predominantly a social endeavor. Although we're enthusiasts and we train hard and we compete, it really was designed for dancing with a variety of partners in a skillful manner. And it was once considered that the measure of a male's dancing skill was how many ladies he could accommodate easily and comfortably across the floor, making her feel beautiful and elegant, and of course, looking good to her friends, which of course was very important. So, the lady is the picture in everything we do, so her poise and position is paramount. The gentlemen, generally we're dressed in all black, tuxedo or something. We're not the show. We show off the girl. So the lady poise, if Jenell, you wouldn't mind just giving a brief synopsis again of how you place your head and your arms?
Okay, so I do still, whether it be foxtrot, tango, waltz, doesn't matter. I always want to have my head weight over my left foot, imagining a straight line from the foot to the top of my head. I want to have a diagonal line from the top left corner of my head to my right toe. And then the third line, there are 3 lines, are my arms are parallel parallel to the floor. So in tango, because there is no swing and sway, I stay parallel to the floor all the time. And in foxtrot, or waltz, or tango, I stay in this same position, always keeping my legs slightly forward, arms are slightly forward, head up and back, and ready to receive the lead.
So that's an important point. Jenell and every lady knows how they would like to look, I believe, when they dance. And her position is specific to her body. So she makes her shape. I am the man, I am framing that, and this is where the variety of partners issue starts to come into play. The lady is consistent, the gentleman is the variable. I make my connections by taking her hand, and I'll point it this way, and making an upward connection to where her arm and body meet, and I've got those 2 points, and I'm guiding that top around the room, telling her lower body where to land with the feet. Now, if I were a lot shorter, and it would hard to be imagining that because I'm usually the shortest one on the floor, and Jenell were super tall, we could have this circumstance, but the lady wouldn't want to just dance down to me. She will stand at her elegant height.
Yes, I stay tall. I always want my center lifted, and to seem somewhat shorter, I can angle a little more rightward with my legs. It gets me a little bit shorter, and I can increase that if I'm dancing with someone who's shorter than me. I can just increase it, but I'm never going to squat. I'm always standing up tall, keeping my center high, stretching up through my sides, and I can change the angle of my legs to make me seem shorter. That's one way of doing it.
Right, so the gentleman then, if I'm making a connection with my hand onto her frame, my 2 hands, I can dance with somebody pretty comfortably who's this tall, this tall, this tall, this tall. Or I could make my perfect frame and walk around the room and see who the best person fits. Would you fit in here? But because there's a lot of varieties of ladies to dance with, I'm going to adjust to her frame. So Jenell, I'm going to come in from this position. She makes her elegant poise, and I make that connection. So we're actually quite a comfortable height. I don't have to make much adjustment. But let's say I were a lot shorter. I would still be able to lift my hands and make the connection to her frame. She wouldn't have to drop and become a shrinking violet to dance with me.
I don't have to fit into his frame. He will frame my shape.
Beautifully said, beautifully said. Now let's say, for example, I was super tall and I was dancing, and a lot of times we run across this situation. The guy's super tall, the lady's quite petite, and so I'm going to stand up tall on my feet. Now, a lot of times the girls, when we're teaching the class, the girls are like, they're looking at the guy thinking, whoa, how am I going to climb this mountain? And it's a super, super hard situation and intimidating. But the lady still holds her poise and her arms at a comfortable level because she's the picture, not me. And so now I'm going to get super tall. Jenell's going to be a little small. I can dance with anyone, even down here. So I make the connection to her, still an upward connection to the hand and the upper arm, and I can guide her gently and beautifully across the floor. So the lady feels elegant, beautiful, and cared for throughout. Now, if this were a swinging dance, waltz, foxtrot, I make the connection in that fashion. But because it's a tango, we make the connection slightly differently. So in a swinging dance, our legs, well, let me just show you first, because we did this drill earlier. We talked about in the previous video, Ballroom Basics, the leg swing. That it fits underneath my body, the leg fits underneath my body, and swings. The knee is moving the foot along the floor, swinging it along the floor in basically a straight line. But in the tango scenario, we don't do that. We take our knee across the body as opposed to along the plane of the other foot, across the body. So that sets up a whole different set of circumstances with how I have to hold my girl. So now Jenell makes her lovely shape. I make a connection with the inside of my right forearm to her left side, not an upward one. I connect here, and I make that connection here. And as I turn more to the left than her, she has a lot of extra arms sticking out, so she's gonna drape and hook that her hand under my right upper arm.
So this hand, arm from my elbow comes down, almost underneath, and then lifts up. It's lifting up to him, connecting. Not pulling on him, but just making a connection, equal and opposite.
Right, so now, if you could see what we're doing here. The reason that is because in the swinging dances, we're trying to move gently and fluidly across the floor. In the tango, it's almost a march, and we're gonna do some drills to help emphasize that action. So my legs cannot, if I were to do that with the music, would feel peculiar swinging to that marching rhythm. So we're gonna now, rather than swing our feet across the floor, we're gonna use our knee to pick up and place our feet in their final position for a staccato-like movement. So in order to accommodate that, we have to hold in this way. So a simple way to do this is I do my foxtrot frame or my waltz frame, I make the connection, and I turn my body slightly to the left without my girl, and that drops my arm in along her body, and she can hook my arm. Now we're opposite with the bodies turned off one another slightly. And we're going to show you why that's important. Now, let's just talk a little bit about the posture because we had some questions about that. There's many ways to achieve good posture, but here's one that served us very, very well. And I was obsessive about my neck and head position because I didn't want to look bad. So before we did anything, I would always have Jenell use her arm along my back.
Right in this nice groove on the back, my arm fits right in there, and then my hand is here, and he can press his head into my hand. We used to do this every time before we would compete, just as a nice little warm-up.
Now what that does for me, for feel-wise, it gives me a point of reference that I don't normally have. And you can do the same thing for the lady, although the ladies usually have excellent posture, and it's annoying. But the guys, we struggle with it. Let's see, she does that with no effort at all. The other thing it does for the tango, because here we're now doing something very different in the way we move. In a swinging dance, we're doing, if you remember from our tape before, we did 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So we stepped to turn. That was a pretty straight swing, step to turn. That's the swinging dance. In tango, we're going to turn to step. That's significant. Step to turn versus turn to step. So tango does a turn to step. Now, if I did that from the side, you'd really see what's happening in the leg. As I turn, my knee lifts and places my foot on the ground. So you can see now why we have to be more turned away from one another to accommodate that position. So turn to step. So posturally, I have to be very conscious of my tailbone, back here, being under the sternum. Being under the sternum. So that feels like a very upright posture for most people. And that, now, oh, I still got it. Put my head back there. All right, a little nervous. But tailbone under sternum. Now that when I wind my body, I'll use that expression, turn, it's a wind down, like putting a wood screw in the floor. That will cause me to then want to relocate because as I wind, I won't get lower and lower and lower.
Now when he winds, he's not winding the upper body separate. He's winding from the leg he's standing on. His upper body's just riding along with the leg and the wind.
So now I'm going to show you a little drill we used to always do. Again, this tape is dedicated predominantly to the bronze or newer dancer. So all the terminology that we like to throw around as dancers, we're not going to try to throw it around so much, but give you plain real-world explanations. But there is something called what we say as a right shoulder lead in the walk of a tango. And we achieve this, let's do the little winding thing first, facing each other. So
Oh, yes.
what a right shoulder lead ultimately is before, as I move, my right shoulder crosses the path of the center line of my lady, or across her neck. And if she were moving forward towards me, we could call her having a right shoulder lead. So if Jenell stands here, there's her right shoulder. In a normal swinging dance, I would just do that action. My shoulder, notice how it just stayed in this position. If I were doing the tango, I would wind here before I stepped. So my shoulder went across. That's referred to as a right shoulder lead. And you can see it from this direction as well, as Jenell puts her back to. So I can turn, my shoulder goes. If I were swinging, I would stay in this position and I would go past her comfortably on this side. So even for you advanced dancers, this is significant. For the newer dancer, might as well get that habit going early.
So yeah, so there's a great exercise for this. I can do it facing you, and I can rotate literally to face the other way. You'll notice I'm not doing anything to stress my back. I'm not twisting anything in my back. This is all staying from here up the same. And I'm only doing that through my legs. So if I face this way, and I turn, you could see I turned through my hips and legs and not through my top. I'm not twisting anything through the upper body. So that's great exercise.
Yeah, so what we used to do is face one another, and I would stand predominantly towards my right, Jenell would stand predominantly towards her left foot, and we would practice turning to almost our backs were towards one another. We would wind, and that would give us a sense of how much power can be achieved over our own foot. Now, if you're super new at this, do it very, very gradually, especially when you're with the partner. But it gives you an idea then of how to create an opposing position with one another. Because to dance tango well, we have to have freedom to be able to be powerful in our own space. So if we were too stuck together, I would pull her off her foot every time. My head would get kicked into the right. And if you practice this at all as a new dancer, you would quickly see how many of these problems start to occur.
So that turn happens in varying degrees, depending on the figure that you're trying to do. It may turn just a tiny bit or a lot, depending on what it is. But what prevents us from actually ending up back to back is the lady's arm is attached. So we can only go so far. You hit the end, and at that point, you want to take a step.
So it's often discussed in tango, we try to give the dance the look or the atmosphere that was inspired by the music being played. So we need a few drills to get our body to understand that which is required. Because tango is not a swinging dance, and it has, as Jenell said earlier, no rise and fall or sway, when we sway, our body, we'll call this the column, bows outside the feet, causing foot rise or a peeling of the heels away from the floor. But in tango, we don't do that. So our body column stays basically vertical and winds in between the feet, not trying to get outside in a bowing fashion. Now there's exceptions of picture lines and all kinds of things we do to amplify stuff we do or make it more exaggerated. But we're talking about basics here. So we have to learn to walk in that way. So we say we walk with checks and rocks, keeping our spine vertically balanced between the feet. So we're going to do a little drill. We're going to go in a little circle. And Jenell does this like way better than me. So I'll let her show.
Well, one thing about this also, what we're going to say is, if I'm not going to brush my feet on the floor and I'm going to pick them up and place them, I better be balanced. So every step I take, I need to be balanced because I have to pick up the next leg to take the step. So then we'll go ahead and do
Excellent. So what we're going to do is we're going to we're going to stand on the right foot. We're both going to go forward because the forward walk is a little bit more, let's call it, has more moving parts or specific details. We're going to wind. In doing so, because we're predominantly on the right foot with a vertical poise, the knee of the moving leg lifts and drapes slightly across the one we're standing on. So the expression, the free thigh, is always high. So I'm about to leave that foot, my heel comes up off the floor, and I'm going to walk and I'm going to place that foot. The wind the turn to step rather than step to turn causes my foot to dance across my body, or what we call contra-body movement position. And all that means is whatever foot we're standing on, the foot that we're stepping onto moves in line or across the line of that step. We throw that terminology around, but it's very, very simple. So now, here's a funny little thing. If you bought your new shoes and you threw the shoes out, put the boxes on your feet. That would be a waste of money, wouldn't it? But rather than walking with the back of the box, we're gonna walk with the corners of the box. So I'm gonna walk with the outside edge of the heel of my my left foot, and then I'm gonna walk with the inside edge of the heel of my right foot. So we angle the body across, and here's the little drill we use to do it. So Jenell, let's move back a little bit so we can get the camera thing here going. So we're both gonna stand, we're both gonna go in a circle now. So what we wanna do is stand on the perimeter of an imaginary circle. We can do it quite small in here. And I'm gonna turn my body, and Jenell's gonna turn her body in towards the center of the circle. Feet didn't swivel, because we're not doing any foot swivel here. Put our hands on our left hip, so that ensures that our body is turned towards the center of the circle. And then we're gonna lift and place the knee into position, and that thereby placing the foot. So knee moves foot. So we go lift and place, lift and place. Now when we take the second step, we're just gonna rock from the inside edge of one foot to the inside edge of the other. So it's lift and strike, lift and place, rock, rock. Lift and strike, lift and place, rock, rock. Lift and strike, lift and place, rock, rock. That is an excellent position. Now here's what we don't want to do. We don't want to rock like this. We don't want to swing like this. So we're trying to keep the body posture vertical through that. So we're going to play a little bit of music, and we're going to do the lifting and placing. And Jenell does this very, very well, so I'll let her have a go.
Okay. I'm doing this alone? Is that what's happening here?
Yeah, you do it alone so I can play music.
Okay, here we go. And 1, 2. And walk and walk and rock, rock. Walk and walk, rock, rock. Walk, rock, rock, rock. Walk, rock. Okay.
Wow, that's really good. So even in a small space, you can practice your tango walks. Now that, as you know now, by viewing that, walks curve to the left in the tango. So that's an important consideration. So rather than moving straight at one another, doing walk, walk, tango, that's very cumbersome and awkward. That was wrong, by the way, just so you know. So we're gonna, don't practice that one. So we're gonna do our turning action. I'm gonna make my connection, and I'm gonna turn to the left, walk, walk. So we can practice those rocks together if we chose to. We could do lift and place, step, rock, replace. Lift and place, step, rock, replace. Lift and place, step, rock, replace. And you get a good practice of how the bodies wind together. Again, this kind of action, and that the turn precipitates the need for the step.
As the follower, I feel him turn, but I do not turn with him. I turn completely separate on my own. So in other words, if I feel him turning and I get the urge to turn with him, I would end up in his way, totally on his side.
The urge to turn.
So I'm actually winding down, like Jim says, I'm winding down, and my turn is over my own leg, not really going in the same. So I'm following, but I'm not following.
Oh, yes, well put.
It's hard to explain.
Well put. So Jenell has a pet peeve. Probably several, but this is one. And this brings us to a lovely little prop moment, my favorite things to do. Jenell, why don't you tell us what you dislike? I'll move away so I'm not the butt of this. I'll get the props.
Well, I explain. Because the lady's arm is over the top of the man's and underneath, when he either turns away from his arm, right arm, or when he just moves his right arm, or say he turns the promenade and leaves this behind, that's extremely painful to the lady because it separates her shoulder. So Jim has a great prop, couple of props here I see.
Inspired by the fear or the wrath of a dissatisfied partner, we want to develop as much as we can a consistent space that the lady can dance in. So in other words, I assume she's staying the same shape that when she walked in the room. She's not going to shape shift on me. So I get used to putting my arm in a relative position. So I have these little boxes. They're about 1 foot long and probably 2 by 2. And I place that on the flat of my rib cage, not on the point, but on the flat. And then I just put my hand over the edge. That, for me, gives me a sense of where my arm is always relative to the turn of my body. And because tango's turning so much, it's very easy to leave things behind. But I have to make sure they go together or do more than my arm. So that's one thing the ladies hate. I can tell you some of the other things, but here's a little trick for that. The ladies hate when the head of the gentleman comes in, or, which I said before, the arms separate from their position. So when I was learning, I was always told to wear a necktie when I'm dancing or learning, or even teaching for that matter. But we had a spare. Necktie goes over the neck. There are probably 100 different gimmicks for this, but old neckties make the best. That's nearly a bib. That's not a necktie.
That's an old tie.
That's an old tie. So then what you do is, because our head and neck is in this vertical poise with the tailbone under sternum, I want my head and neckline to always be part of my left body half. Always be part of the left leg, not in the center, because I need to counterbalance the lady. So I'm counterbalancing the lady by just angling our body slightly outward to make a tension, and that's a connection. So then I'm not necessarily wanting to pull my arm in because her weight is out and mine is too. The other thing, this looks really silly, I'm sure, but the other thing that it does is it holds my arms up for me. Simple. So Jenell, hold my hand. If we lean away from each other, my arm goes up. If we come in towards each other, my arm goes down. Get away from each other, the arm goes up. So the tension of the couple relieves the stress. So everybody who's new has held their arm up for a song and gone, oh, it's killing me at the end. When I found that, I thought that was the biggest secret. People were not trying to tell me. It was like a hazing ritual. They wanted me to be sore first. So, that funny little thing about that. So now the tie goes in the left hand. And you pull on it, not too tight, but pull the hand out to the left, and that keeps your head and neck to the left, and the arm distance the same. It's compact. It's compact.
This distance stays the same.
Now where's my box? This is not complete without both bits.
The box.
So now I used to practice my bits here. Box, hand, nose to the left, so the right side of my cheek is towards Jenell, and then I would practice my walks and my rocks. Practice my walks and my rocks. And whatever figure I was happened to be working on that day, and it gave me a good sense of the feel of my body. So I could do a little basic, a little rock, all kinds of fun things. Even a turn to promenade will keep the consistent body position. You drill yourself, guys, you're going to feel real good if you do that. Okay? Very good. All right. Get rid of the bib. Let's get into some of the figures. So the basic of this dance, 2 walks in a tango close. Remember I said the knee pulls the feet. So the gentleman is going to walk forward. He's going to put our arms up in position for practice. Nose to the left, so we're dancing cheek to cheek. And we do walk, forward, side, brush the knee. Now, I want you to notice something. My knee is forward. My inner thigh, my inner left thigh, is helping keep my girl to the left. Helping keep her to the left. So if I leave my leg out there, barn door's open, she's flying down the pasture. So I lock her in there. The lady, Jenell, why don't you demonstrate the lady's part once?
So when I go back, I have to keep taking my head with me. I take my head and my elbow, left elbow, and as I move back, I'm rolling to the back of my foot. I'm moving before I take the step. That way I'm not heavy when he tries to move. But then what happens is because I'm staying left and winding down into that left leg, I end up stepping back in CB&P. So I'm using this little toe, I'm landing towards the little toe on the first step and towards the big toe on the second step. So my basic goes back, back, tango, close, and we don't really ever go straight back in tango like we would in a foxtrot. Foxtrot goes straight back. Tango sort of moves leftward, so I'm going in CB&P. My second step with my left leg does not go straight back. It goes slightly side and back because I'm traveling and moving along my elbow and taking my head with me into that. So I have back, back, tango, close.
So now we'll do this together. Jenell will make her lovely poise. I'll make the connection. I turn my body slightly leftward so my right forearm touches the side of her body. Get the nose left, the thighs forward, and I rotate or wind to step. Turn to step, quick and brush. That count would be slow, slow, quick, quick, brush, slow. No weight change on that left foot. And notice how we curved that as we did so. You can do that in a very small space. So one more time, we have the wind to the left. Left hand is now very compact, gentlemen, because again, I've gone from here to here. Her arm is only a certain length, so my hand has to accommodate. Turning to the left, we do slow, slow, quick, quick, slow. And that's your tango basic. Very important step. Jenell loves this step. What do you call this thing again?
I call it the left rock turn.
Oi, the left rock turn.
I feel that the rock step, the reverse or reverse turn, rock reverse turn, is teaching you the essence of tango. Because we're gonna, when you turn and rock at the same time, what you're doing is you're turning your upper body and not your legs. So this keeps your legs together in CB&P the whole time. So the step would be, if I did the man side, slow, slow, quick, quick, slow. Lady would be going back, slow, slow, quick, quick, slow. And sometimes the tendency for people when they start turning is to let their legs come apart. And that ruins the whole feel of the tango. So you're keeping your legs underneath you, the body's turning, placing the foot right underneath you, not changing or taking your legs to the side.
Fantastic floor craft step. I always forget to use it. So we're going to just do the left rock turn. We do slow, slow, a quick, quick, slow. Many people ask, we say slow in dancing, but a slow is comprised of 2 beats. So we're gonna do, I'm gonna count it a certain way that we're gonna strike on the first beat and stand on the second part of the beat. So instead of slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, we're gonna say 1 and 2 and quick, quick, slow, or 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. The interesting thing here is if we were doing a foxtrot walk, I would do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Notice how my legs brush on every step. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
It gives you a continuous movement.
Continuous swinging movement. In tango, I take my foot from where I left it, using my knee and thighs lift to place it in its final position. It lands exactly where my leg threw it. So we do 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Now you can stylize this by pulling your knee on the floor for a brush, or you can be more abrupt if you want to be a little bit more staccato. So we're going to now do a basic and a left rock turn, hopefully giving you the tango atmosphere. We do 1 and 2 and 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 1 and 2 and. Whew, that really gives you the feel, doesn't it?
It does, especially when you have to count the whole
I know. But that should give you the basic feel of the tango. We're going to try that with a bit of music, see how it goes. All right, everybody, take your dance position. Okay, pretty darn fun.
When we count that way, it really does give it more of an atmosphere of the music. It feels completely different.
So I encourage you to listen to the music, be driven by the sound, put your body in the best position for that task, and give your body the atmosphere of the dance. So basically in 2 figures, the basic and the left rock turn, I think if you practice that a fair amount, it takes no space at all, keeping your weights to the left, keeping the arm connected, and by all means, accommodating a variety of partners. Lady, her position always being paramount. Gentleman is the frame, ladies the picture. Be true to the music, be true to the feel, and of course be courteous to your partner. I think you'll have a fantastic time with all the dances, including the tango today. So, from Phoenix, Arizona, Jim and Jenell Maranto, happy dancing, stay healthy, and enjoy one another.